maybe think of them like and write them down if you have them, just because, the more the better. But yeah, Lindsay, do you care if I just like kind of give a little intro and then
Oh,
we
I'm going
dive
to hand it
in?
on over to Bailey and let him introduce himself.
Awesome. Hi, everyone. My name is Bailey. I definitely know some of the faces and some of the names here, but I graduated from Drake in December 2020, so not long ago at all. And yeah, I feel like now I live in New York and I work at NBC Universal, and I know what it's like to be like a college student in the Midwest. I feel like there's a lot of, how do I want to say, it's hard to break out into some of these media companies that are based in bigger cities, because there are obviously a lot of schools based there and a lot of students there and a lot of people there. But I have found that the pandemic has actually been really helpful to Midwestern college students, because we are now eligible for internships that are remote. And I mean, most internships, at least at NBC, are still remote, meaning you're all eligible. And so I'll kind of walk through what I've done, I guess, on my career journey. And then we'll dive into like anything like that I talk about, we can like discuss, or any tips you have or any questions. I'm happy to like share what I know. But I went to Drake. My first internship was the summer after my sophomore year, which I like to tell people, because I feel like some people are like, oh, you need to like have 8 internships done. And it's like, no, like this was like, I was halfway through college. And it was with Twin Cities PBS on a PBS kids show called Hero Elementary, which my parents are both teachers, and I was super passionate about television. My major was digital media production at Drake in the J School. And so I was like, amazing. Like this, like after searching, I feel like for so long, like I finally found that one and I was like, this is perfect. And it was like the perfect opportunity. And I feel like it was like a great, like, first like in the office, because this was like pre-pandemic like internship experience. And then I mean, when I was at Drake, I feel like I was doing a lot of things that I'm sure you're doing that will be so useful for like your portfolios, such as like Drake Magazine, the Times Delphic, any of those little projects, like those are all really good. And then the next opportunity that kind of, I would say, really shaped my career path was Professor Sandy Henry had thrown out an opportunity with the International Radio and Television Society, the IRTS, in class one day. This was for like J63, and she was like, if anyone's interested, like, here's the application. And I was like, okay, like I'll apply. I kind of have the mentality, and I will share this as a tip. Like, if you don't apply for something, you're not going to get it. So I try to apply for as many things as possible. That was kind of my like mentality going into it. And so I was like, amazing, I'll apply. And it is a pretty lengthy application. So I was like, and then I remember I turned it in like the day it was due, and I was like, hope, like, we'll see what happens with this. But like in my head, it was like something that wouldn't happen, just because like it is a very competitive program. For those who don't know about the fellowship, which applications are open as of today for this, so I encourage everyone on this call to apply. I mean, what the fellowship was when I applied for it and what it is originally is you got paid housing in New York City all summer, a paid internship. They paid for your flight, a weekly stipend, and mentorship opportunities all summer. It was like a whole thing. And you lived in like NYU dorms. It was like a thing that they did every summer. And so that was what I applied for. And I'll walk through kind of my process, but ended up being selected for. But this was pandemic. So I was accepted. So there's round 1. Round 2 is you write like 5 essays. And then round 3 was like the interview. My interview was in like February. And then I found out that I got in February 2020. And they pair you with like an internship. So like you can kind of be paired anywhere. I really encourage anyone to apply for this program. I'll give all the links to Lindsay, but they pair you. And mine was at 9 Story Media, which does children's media, again, tying back to like PBS Kids. So like really look into like your past experiences, which don't have to be at like media companies, literally like any place. Like in my interview for the IRTS, Lindsay will think this is so funny. They talked about how I had directed these like middle school musicals at a local school, which is where Lindsay's kids go. And like, they loved that. They were like, wait, that's so unique. So like literally like hone in on like the little things that might like surprise you. Anyway, these are just little tidbits. But so I was accepted, but it was during pandemic times. So it was virtual. So I still was able to do that. It was just a virtual opportunity. The reason I'm saying all this is last year was virtual too. This year is still going to be mostly virtual, but they are paying for students to go on a week-long immersive media boot camp 1 week where you get to meet with people from like Facebook, Spotify, NBC, see like any media company. So like that would be amazing. So promoting that, but I did that. Through that though, you make so many connections. And I feel like I started networking with like informational interviews where I would just like reach out to someone and like be curious about their job and like ask questions about it, not expecting anything in return, but just looking for maybe a mentor or like to learn more about their cool job. From that, I applied to an NBC internship at NBC, and it was remote. This was for the Tonight Show. So this was during the COVID summer. Or I mean, we're still in COVID, but it was in summer 2020. And so I was like, amazing. I applied, and that was like such a long process. I did 4 interviews at least for that one. It was like a lot, but I ended up being selected. So that was kind of my first big like media company internship. And it was based in New York, even though I was at Drake. So this was the final semester of my senior year. I did that. It was so cool. I worked in the music, talent, and writers department. And I guess when my fellowship was canceled, that was when I was expecting to be in New York, and I was like, I want to live in New York. Like that was kind of when I guess I set that goal for myself. And so like through the Tonight Show, I was like trying to make as many New York connections, like saving all my paychecks. And then coming out of college, I was able to move to New York with those paychecks. And then I applied for the Page program, which is basically what I do now. I'm a Page, and it is a full-long year-long program where you rotate through different departments. So you could do a rotation in ad sales, marketing, communications, anything, like all the different shows, like each team kind of has a page. And so I started in corporate communications and publicity. Then I went to corporate events. Now I currently do Today Show, Plaza, and Desk, which means I manage our crowd experience, as well as I helped with a lot of guest stuff this fall because we didn't have a green room page. And then, so my next assignment is I'm actually going to be that green room page. So through the end of my page year, I'll be sticking with the Today Show, which I'm super excited about. But I've also gotten the chance to work as seating director for SNL this fall. This is my last month of doing that. And yeah, I'm excited to see what comes next. But I guess my point is like, I know how hard it is to be from the Midwest and like looking at these huge internships. And so a personal goal of mine is to get more students from the Midwest, from Drake, from these schools, interning at these huge companies. So I'm happy to answer any questions based off like kind of my little path that I walked you through, or any questions about applications. I'm happy to go more in depth on that, on informationals. But I hope this is helpful, and I'm happy to chat about anything, or like we can talk through like the internships or the fellowship, whatever you want.
Thank you so much, Bailey, for doing this. And the idea here too is to just try to get those general questions answered so that Bailey's doing fewer and fewer one-on-ones, and we're conserving his time to really hone into his page program with the Today Show and let him really work on that. So let's go ahead and open it up if anybody has any questions for Bailey.
Savannah.
Go for it, Savannah.
Hi, thank you so much for talking with us. My first question is, I was just wondering, where did you look to find some of these more focused media internships? I know it can be kind of tricky. It seems like everyone wants like a communications intern for like a dental company or banks, but to find the more creative entertainment business ones.
Absolutely. So I ran into that same problem, Savannah, and I'm happy to tell you about what I did. I would like, first of all, I feel like looking for internships is so overwhelming because you're like, where do I even start? What do I do? Like, and like, it's just hard. You don't know what's real. Has this been filled yet? Like you truly never know. And it's not great at communication. I feel like knowing like what's going on. So here are my tips, I guess. I kind of have to put my brain right now back in like application mode, which I feel like it was in for like a state of 4 years. So putting it back in that. But I guess my biggest advice, well, I know like I used all the online stuff. So like, well, the best bet is going to be to go to the company's site. to like find it if there's any companies that you really want to work for. I know what you mean though about like seeing all these like I think one time like interviewed for like the marketing internship at like a dog toy company or like something really weird, and it's like what's up with that. But for that, like I saw those too. So for like I feel like it's hard because most internships either say like communications internship or marketing internship, and it's like where can I get more specific? And I mean, you really do have to sort through. But for me, at least like for entertainment ones, and these are more kind of rooted in like the coast, but I joined a lot of like LinkedIn groups that posted like internships, which I'm happy to share. One is like, so you want to work in TV, I think. And then like the other one is like young entertainment professionals, which I think holds like meetups and stuff too. So those were really great ways. I definitely used like Glassdoor and like sites like that. Those can be a little tricky, I think, just because like stuff gets posted on there like multiple times. But that was definitely a really good way, as well as like I feel like every day I would just like Google search like different keywords like internships videography, internships television, like really just like looking. And I mean, obviously like I encourage everyone to look on the coast, but like there are so many like I would not have known about the Twin Cities PBS opportunity if I like that just came up in a Google search. Literally, like these things are just like posted and they're all on different timelines, so you never really know. But now is definitely this time to start looking for a summer internship. And I will say on NBC's move so quickly. And I mean, they get a ton of applications. So I think that's why, but like theirs opened on Friday, today is Wednesday. And there's no, I don't think technical, like at least yet like closing date, but they do rolling applications, which I think means like this Friday, they will probably send out interviews, because how they do their first interviews is it's like digital. So they can send out some now and then like in a week send out more. So like I feel like they probably do it more so like that. So for an internship like that, I would prioritize getting your application in as fast as you can and just having all your materials ready. That kind of went off into a different tangent, but did that at least help a little bit about where to find the internships? Good. And I'm happy to share those LinkedIn groups. They're really helpful.
We will get those up on the SJMC Facebook group pages too to help support.
Totally.
Good. Great question. Thanks, Savannah. Anybody else have any questions?
They can be about truly anything. Bryn.
Hi. So I'm actually an intern at NBC this semester, but I'm a senior. And I was wondering, I was interested in like early career or like entry-level jobs, like post-grad. So what's like the difference between the applications or like the process to apply to these like entry-level jobs at NBC, like in relations to the internship? Like, is it similar? Yeah.
Totally. Great question. Also, I didn't know you were an NBC intern. Oh my gosh, amazing. We are coworkers.
I started yesterday, so.
Oh my gosh, congrats, Bryn.
Thank you.
Yes. So on the topic of entry-level jobs, because for me that was definitely like confusing too. And like, I mean, I was really going over a lot of options. Like, do I want to do something like the Page program? Do I want to jump into a job? Like when I got my Page program offer, I was like interviewing for other things. And I was like, do I like go for this? For me, I love doing the Page program because like you get to try a little bit of everything. And my ultimate deciding factor was like, when I was accepted, and this was kind of my dream, I was like, could I go for like a coordinator type role? Yes, but it's like, I personally, like, this is the only time in my life when I can do an experience like this. So that was like the deciding factor for me. But as far as like entry-level roles go, I think it's pretty similar, but it's definitely different than internships, because internships, you're going through like a campus recruiter, and like those recruiters are still key to entry-level jobs, but they just look differently because like internships are obviously like on schedule, whereas like jobs open, you never know. And another thing that I found that's tricky is like, you might be applying for a job that's literally been filled, but they have to post it. So like that can also be frustrating. But as far as entry-level roles go, definitely like if you're doing an internship, like do as many informationals there, because if you're trying to figure out like what kind of team you'd want to be on, I feel like that's a good way to like figure out, like there's so many jobs that like we don't even know are out there, just so many different teams. So I feel like that's a good way to hone in on that. And then in order to find the jobs, I think it's like the same way. Like you got to go through like the company's sites, otherwise like Google searching, using groups. there's a lot of people on LinkedIn who like post just like jobs that are open and some different like entertainment sites specifically. So like for that, but also it's a little tricky because like coming out of school, like I was interested in like a lot of production assistant roles, and like a lot of those are freelance, meaning you get like basically like contracted for a show, but then like when the season's done, like you're unemployed, which works for a lot of people. But for me, I know that I was looking for like a little bit more stability, especially like at first. And so shows that are like more on cycle, such as like the Tonight Show or like Today's Show, those are things that I kind of gravitated towards. Just because like for a lot of the shows, if you're looking to work in more of a production setting, you would be more of that like contracted work, which like I've definitely done. Like there was a couple weeks before I started the Page program where I like did talent production assistant work for the Impractical Jokers. That was really cool. But like it's definitely like a different lifestyle and like just like a different vibe than like the people who are like daily in there. Again, went on a tangent, but did that help, Bryn?
Yes, thank you so much.
Of course.
I love it. Bailey and I are horrible together. We go on our tangents together. Anybody else? You don't have to raise your hands. You can just unmute.
I did have a question. What Drake classes helped you the most with the work that you're doing now?
That is a great question. I don't know. I always like in informationals always ask like, what's the number one skill, or just like from my mentors, I want to know like, what's the skill that I can be growing in more? And they've said writing every single time that I've like asked anyone. So I would say like any writing classes, especially news writing, you're going to want to be able to like switch, especially between between different modes of writing, if that makes sense. Like obviously like writing for journalists in like AP style, but also like there's obviously so many different just ways to write. So writing would definitely be my number one. But as far as like specific classes go, I would say digital or web page design was really essential because you learn like coding and like you can add that to your resume, and those are like really hard skills. Anything with like hard skills that you can add to your resume, I would say are going to be like the classes that will help you the most. And not just like Adobe Suite, but just like any other weird skills, because people like employers are fascinated by like different softwares and just like sites. And so like if you can speak to them, like that might be a new product that like you could like bring onto their team, or like a new tool that they can use. So really just like anything that gives you those skills. But web page design definitely comes to mind for me. I'm just trying to think if there's any other Drake JMC, anything project based, because like I don't know, I actually was thinking about this like the other day, but I was like, I mean obviously this was the point, but I was like, I wonder if we like did group projects, because like then when I like would work in real life, like we'd have to do work in groups. And that's why like I feel like anything where you're like working on a team, like while those projects kind of can be a pain if like not everyone's pulling their weight, like they do prepare you for when you're like actually like working on a team with people. So those would be my examples of hard skills. I mean, for me, and also this is another thing, because like the IRTS like soft skills on their applications, I'm just going to give that tip right now. So I at one point had like
Say
hard
it
skills
louder.
and soft skills. What?
Say it louder. Can you give some examples of soft skills too?
Yeah. So I know IRTS loves soft skills on their resume. And those are things that can be anywhere from like organization, like anything that you bring to a team that's not like Adobe Creative Cloud, that's not the Microsoft Office, the Google Suite, the coding, any site that you use, any like tangible skill. So like these soft skills are going to be like personal skills, such as like time management, just like things that like are so useful in a job environment, but aren't like a skill that you like learn, something that you have. So I definitely recommend. And on the topic of that, I just want to say with the IRTS, I just want to like, and this is maybe like a secret hint to how to apply or not to apply, but I've learned that with they're looking for like people, like they're gonna like NBC can't read every application because they get so many. So it goes through like a computer before it actually gets to someone. So that's why like for those applications, you need to really be like using their keywords and like using things that'll get pulled out of the system. But for IRTS, it's like a smaller foundation. They're a nonprofit. And so like they're reading all of it, like every single application. And so you really want to make your essays and your stories for those, and like your soft skills and your experiences and just like everything about you really personable and succinct, and like they're gonna read it. So like that's my big key with IRTS is like, especially like they know me now, they know Drake University a little bit better. Like I'm hoping that could be a potential opportunity for some Drake students. So just like really lean into like who you are and like what makes you unique, because like they like that and that's what they're going to want to talk about in your interview. And I know they read every application. Like I remember being shocked, like I've never heard of another place doing this, but like we met later that summer and they like remembered everything about my application that I submitted in like November. Like I was like, what? Like they knew, because I wrote about like they're very like story based, and so like you got to really make your stories like detailed. That's my big advice. But yeah, those are my examples of hard skills. We ended up somewhere else, but Natalie, those are. And then like just literally anything, like think of any like site that you use. Like I don't know, I was a digital media production major, so like I was more familiar with like Adobe Suite, but also like Audacity, or like in my advanced video class, we use like DaVinci. I don't know if they're still doing that, but like different like editing tools. So anything that you can bring to the table is helpful.
I have a bit of a follow-up question. So when you were talking about your application to the IRTS, I think you mentioned like you had to really choose the details of your story. So how did you, when you're applying for all these jobs, how did you build your own narrative? Like, can you tell me like what that was for you and maybe some tips for us?
Totally. So I want to start by saying like everyone in here like has experiences. I hope they've like done something. And so like with your resume that you already have, this is my number one interview prep tip, is like go through those and like pull stories so that when you are like interviewing, you're like, oh, I already like thought about this last night. I pulled that story from that job. And then you're not only highlighting a job on your resume, but you're answering their questions. So answering these situational based questions, which are also what are in these essays. For me and crafting my narrative, I feel like, I don't know, in my IRTS essays, I feel like I personally talked a lot about like my past, things that like I'm really passionate about and like why, if that makes sense. So like they're shaping future media leaders and they're very rooted in media is what I will say. Meaning like they're not just looking for like people who do digital media production. They're looking for people who do ad sales and advertising and marketing and content distribution and like graphic design and like every different side of media. And so in your stories, touch, or at least I guess what I did was I touched on like things that related to so many different areas, but that I was passionate about. So like I'm a digital media production major, but I know like I'm personally really passionate about the New York Times. And like I talked about that in my application. I talked about my favorite writers from it and like really get at those details, because that's what like they want to know, that you have this passion, that they want to give you that money to allow you to go to New York for free. And so like that's why like you really got to like kind of, and I mean it is strategic in a way, like you kind of have to craft that narrative and like, I mean, make it authentic and make it genuine, but like pull at their heartstrings, like you know what they're looking for. Like another thing is like really, I think, honing in for them on like what you want to do. And like you don't have to know exactly what you want to do, but share like the two things that you're really interested in. And like if there's anything really niche that you're interested in, share that with them, because I think that shows that you are really passionate about something and that you know what you're talking about. And like for me, I talked about in my essays how like my parents are teachers, how I did that internship at PBS Kids, and how like I am really passionate about educational TV, which like still is an end goal of mine, and like really honed in on like, okay, this is like why I want to do this. This is why it's important to me. And this is how I want to spread that and like make a difference, because their whole thing is like bringing young voices, diverse voices into media. And so show them that you can be that voice, I guess. Does that help? I feel like that kind of helps.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks.
Of course.
These are awesome questions. Anybody else?
Hi, Bailey. I have a question.
Hi, Kylie.
Hi. Okay, so because I know you have experience in like kids television and PBS and all that, so that was obviously on your resume. what advice would you give to people who don't technically have entertainment type things? Or do you have any friends that did come from an entertainment industry and then got into either the Page program or the fellowship?
Definitely. Especially, I mean, Page program and fellowship, yes, both absolutely. Like, you do not need media experience. Like, I had only had my they're looking for like experience, especially Page program, but also IRTS of like working with people. I guess I'll speak to Page program first, but Page program is like, so much of my job is just like managing people and like reading a room and like literally like wrangling audiences, like literally like working with them. And so like that's a huge thing that they're looking for, is like teamwork skills, any like customer service skills. And like those are jobs that I feel like most of us have experience in. So like definitely emphasize those if you're interested in Page program. IRTS, yeah, I mean, they're looking for people with like some media experience, I think, but everyone who's in the J school should have some media experience, because like they're going to be so interested in like anything Drake magazine related. They're going to be so interested in like the stuff that's going on there. Like when I say like I talked about everything in IRTS, like I told them like everything that I had ever done. Like I worked at a Caribou Coffee for 5 years, and then I worked at the Minnesota State Fair for 3 summers, and then I was directing middle school musicals. And I talked about like literally, and like ESPN3, talk about that if you do creative services at Drake. I also did like PR for the theater department at Drake. They loved that. And between this, I had done like a little bit of like production assistant work. I don't know if anyone remembers this, but when like CNN was at Drake, I did that for like a couple months, and then I told them about that, and they were like, oh, you've done that too. So like literally just like stockpile like everything that you've done, any like project, and really like find out like what makes it special. And if you can't think of anything to make it special, then you just have to make it sound special, because they're going to believe it either way. Another tip that I'm going to share, this isn't like a good tip, but I'm going to share it anyway, is like, you can kind of, I don't know, you can figure it out. Like fake it till you make it. Literally like in interview settings, and like when you're telling stories and like stuff like that, like please tell genuine, honest stories. But like, you know, you're the one telling the story, and in media, we're all storytellers, and you can tell whatever story you want. So that's just what I'm going to say with that. Take that how you will. But I hope that helped.
Remain ethical. Please be ethical.
And
Maintain
please,
truth.
yes,
Okay.
as I share bad tips that are on video, but those are my tips.
Oh, I love you, Bailey.
Okay, Bailey, could you like explain, like just give us an example of like how you would twist something? Like, do you have any examples of like how you've done like that? Because like, I don't know, like, am I just supposed to make stuff up, or like how?
Make stuff up.
Obviously, we're not supposed to make stuff up, but like, how are you twisting them? Like, are you?
It's more just like, I would say like stating it in a way that highlights everything that like you want to show off. So like when you're looking into like telling about like a past experience, even if it is something about like Caribou Coffee, it's not as like, don't make stuff up, but like it's like looking for things that you wouldn't think about. Like if there was like a couple new team members who you like trained in, say that, because like they're going to see that as like a good skill, but that's not something that you would just like think about. If there's any customers that you've like in fact, I think I talked about this in an essay somewhere, but like I worked at Caribou for like 5 years, and like have developed a lot of special relationships with the customers, just because like I've been there, and most of our customers are like 80 to 100 years old, I feel like. So like you really like do gain that connection. So I like talked about how that was really important to me, like just like trying to find ways. So it's not making it up, but it's more like highlighting things that you want them to see, and you don't want to highlight the things that they know as much as like I was a cashier. You know, you want to like find the things that will add to their team, looking for skills that cross over, which is important for all things, I think, because like, and this will kind of speak to Kylie's question, but like I feel like when I was like interviewing for even like Today's Show and for like news experiences, like I didn't have a lot of news experience. I didn't major in news, but like there are interchangeable, tangible skills that you're learning in like every aspect of your schoolwork and life, and pull on those in your applications, because like at least the IRTS really looks into what makes all the little pieces that make up you, I guess. So don't lie, but look for the highlights to share is what I mean to say.
Okay. Gotcha. And then do you put like that, like experience like that in the service industry? Would you include that on a resume for this? Or is that something you would want to bring up like if you had an interview or in like some kind of cover letter or like personal statement, or where in the application would you think that's best to place?
I mean, it depends. For your resume, if it just depends on what you have on your resume. All of you are going to get to a point where you're like omitting things from your resume because you have like new opportunities to add. So like if you need to add that to your resume to like make it look complete, like add it away. That's an inexperience that you had, especially if you have done something in these summers between college. Like those are definitely experiences that you can highlight. I think it depends on what you're applying to and just kind of using context clues. Like I'm telling you right now, the IRTS will be fascinated in every aspect of your life. And the PAGE program will probably find any customer service skills really useful because you're working with audiences so much. And that's a necessary skill for the job, is knowing like how to talk to people, how to manage them. Does that help? Just like you kind of have to, I think, feel it out.
Yes, that totally makes sense. Thanks.
And then CJ, along these lines, what makes a balanced resume? Let's talk resumes because we haven't even really touched on that. It definitely depends, I think, on what you're applying to. For more like business-driven internships, I would say like you really need like a more boring, not boring, but like that kind of concrete, like no color, like very black and white. Since we are in the media field, that means that we do kind of get to make our resume a little more interesting if we like feel like it. Like if you're a graphic design major, I say go all out because obviously you're going to be sharing that portfolio. They're going to want to see what you can do. What I found for me and what I think is a nice balance, at least for me, who's like works in media creatively, but also like to make my resume professional, is I typically like do a pretty straightforward resume. Like it has my experiences, my school, and my skills, 3 main parts. But at the top, I usually will add like a color and then like for my header so that like there is a little color. So like is standing out, but yet it's still laid out easy enough where if it's going through like an application source like the NBC one, where like not everyone might get like to talk to a recruiter because so many people are applying and the computer is kind of like sorting through them, it makes it easier to read if it's just that straightforward resume. So again, I think you kind of have to like decide on what you're applying for. But my greatest advice is kind of to like find that balance. Like, I don't think it has to be one way or the other. If that, at least for us, since we work in media, I think we can find that in between. That makes it unique yet easy to understand.
On that, before we move on, Andrew has a question on your resume too, but what do you think of 2-column resumes going through the feeders?
I don't know because I had one, but I know now PAGE program personally has made us do the one. So I don't know though. IRTS definitely had me do 2. So I feel like it just depends. But again, IRTS, they read all their applications. So I don't know, just sharing what I know. But I feel like I had a 2-column. So like that should work too. Right now I have the 1 though, is what I will share. And then you put yes. So this is my best advice about like what to write in those bullet points. Definitely like write about what you did, but try to think of like really specific examples, and specifically like they like the cause and effect. So what I mean by that is like, say you did this and the effect was this. So this works really well for people in like marketing or like advertising who use numbers, but they'll be like, it's harder for us, but like for them, they'll be like, oh, I did this and engagement was up 23%, which can work with social media too. But otherwise you kind of have to like find other ways. So like, I'm trying to think if I have anything to like show or an example to give, but like what I mean is like, you could do like led this project, which resulted in blah, 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 which relieved stress from my manager, which organized blah, blah, like, so try to like find those connections and make them really specific. So like some people I think don't do this, but like you can like pull from your experiences. Like if you worked on a specific project, talk about that project, be like, in this project, I organized blah, 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 and managed and led a team of, and like try to like say what you did. Or like, let's say you're writing a resume post for Caribou Coffee, like I did on my resume, and you're like, trained in several team members, which resulted in like a more efficient like flow of staff, or just like explain how that relieves, like trained in new team members to relieve stress from my manager to save her time, or like trained in team members and served as a leader for them throughout their first few weeks. Try to like play it up. So like dig into those, like I've kind of been saying, like those specific things, especially for IRTS, but for everywhere else as well. Does anyone else have any resume related questions or cover letter or LinkedIn or any, since we're kind of on that topic?
So I do have a question about cover letters. And so when I took the like J41 class at Drake, they kind of made it sound more efficient based, like, oh, this is what I've done, this is what I can do. But lately I've had better luck with kind of telling that story and being a little bit more like appealing to the emotional side. So I was just wondering like what kind of advice you'd have to like keep with this new pivot, or to go back to what Carolyn Crow said, or vice versa, what you found successful.
So that is like, that was always my question too. I was like, and like still is to this day, like, how do I do this? Do I make it more personal, more professional? And as annoying as an answer as it is, I think it is a balance of both. But what I would say is lean into, you don't want what I will say is you don't want your cover letter to just be your resume in like paragraph form. That is what you don't want. And so my biggest tip when crafting a cover letter is make it sound professional, but yet you want it to have that personal flair, and like almost like walk them through it. So like I like walk them through what you would bring to their team, and like it doesn't have to, like what you don't want it to be is restating those bullet points. That's my number one tip on the resume. I think it can be very professional. Like I would use letterhead always. I would like put it into like very structured paragraphs and like have that nice signature, that nice like address at the top. And I think your introduction and outro paragraphs can be a little bit more of that professional tone. But I think in the middle, dive into those cool stories, those cool experiences, and like really be specific and show like how you have been an asset in the workplace.
I love it when a student like verifies what I've been saying all along, or a professional in the field. So that's exactly what we're trying to encourage students to do, Savannah, is tell your story, right? And that's what your cover letter is, the opportunity to do that. So yep. Yay. Thank you so much, Bailey. That's awesome.
Oh, of course. It's definitely that. Absolutely. What other questions? Also, I'm happy to pull up like IRTS and NBC site. I feel like the sites can be confusing and like walk people through it. Is that helpful though? Like, please be honest. Like, I want to do whatever will be the most helpful. And also, so on the topic of like NBC internships, as I said, like they opened last Friday. I can like, again, I don't know if these like, I don't know what this means per se in the world of HR, but like I can send referrals, meaning like I can send links as far as I know, and then like that will email you and send you the application, which you might be like, what does that do? I mean, I don't exactly know, but in my own thinking, it flags it, meaning like when a recruiter is looking through all the applications, it says like, oh, this person was referred by someone who worked here. And sometimes I think that flag is all that you need, because like, I know like when I went through that big system, I think my flag was like, there was like a box and it was like, check if you're a part of any of these organizations. And there was like a list of like 30, and I was scrolling through and one of them was the IRTS. So like I was able to check that. And I mean, I can't confirm that that was why I made it to that first interview round, but I feel like that might've been what like set me apart from other candidates. So that's what I think these referrals do. Again, like basically, if you're interested in me sending you one of these links, just like shoot me an email about, because I have to do it per internship, about like maybe why you're passionate about that one, or we can set up time to talk if you don't know what to do. But if we want me to walk through those sites, I'm happy to do that. I don't know if NBCs are all posted yet, but some are. And then the IRTS is a very unique application. I will say it's going to have you divide your like resume into like different, how do I want to phrase this? It has you divide your like experiences into different categories. And there are, I think, 4 essays in the initial application. It is a lengthy one. But again, that was the one where I was like, I don't even know if I'm gonna apply. And then I ended up like getting it. So like, is it lengthy? Yes. But like, do I recommend it? Absolutely yes. Especially because they are coming to New York again this year. And I mean, if you search up like vlogs from like 2016 on YouTube from like the fellows, like that week is insane. Cause like every day you're meeting with like, it was like, oh, we went to Facebook this morning. Now we're having lunch at Spotify. And then after this, we're touring the HBO Max office and then heading to a private dinner with alumni at this rooftop restaurant. It's like, what? And it's all paid for. And I don't know where else you can find that. That was why I was like, I have to apply to at least see if I get it. But yeah, what other questions? What's helpful? We have about 15 minutes left. So, and thank you all for sticking with us and for coming.
You're such a good television host. I love it. Thank you all for coming and joining us.
Also, I literally have had like the craziest week. So sorry if I'm like really scatterbrained today. Literally like right before this, I was on a call for an upcoming segment about like Bob Saget that was like really sad. So that was like what I came from. And like Hoda Kotb was like crying on FaceTime and I was like, what do I do? So it's just like crazy right now at the Today Show, but also amazing. Also, what questions do you have about like do you want to know like what a day in the life is like? Happy to walk through that as well. Whatever is the most helpful.
Okay, so either raise your hand or either unmute yourself or you can write into the chat, whatever feels good to you. And if you would rather know a day in the life, let's kind of let's narrow it down. If you'd like to know the day in the life of what Bailey's doing, you can type that in or raise your hand. Or would you rather be walked through the applications?
Day in the life I'm seeing. So yeah, let's do a day in the life.
Okay.
A day in the life of me. We'll do right now because I feel like my life, this is definitely the most exciting assignment that I've had just from like how busy I am. But so normally right now it's a little weird because of this variant, but like all fall, what I would do is I would get to work around 5:45 a.m. I go in, I like grab my rundown, which is like a rundown of the Today Show of like everything that's happening. And then I would start by like greeting our crowd. And then the first thing we do is we produce those crowd shout outs. So that's a huge part of my job. And those are basically like 5 to 10 second videos, like that where people shout out like hometown or their school or a birthday. So I start by doing that. And yeah, I work on the plaza. So I like chat with the crowd all morning. A lot of times we'll do like giveaways or we've done like concerts. And so when that happens, I'm in charge of like booking the audience for that and like calling the people who get the tickets and like organizing that whole spreadsheet and like doing that. But then also they needed, and this will kind of be my responsibility moving forward, like helping all the guests. So like I greet them at their car, anyone who's like on the show, and then I'll like bring them to guest reception, to their green room. And then just like making sure that they make it to the studio on time because they have to like walk across the street. So it's kind of like managing that. And then when the show's done at 11, I typically go home and I do like meetings in the afternoon and projects and just kind of like finish up my day. And then I'm normally done around like 4 or 5 o'clock. And then for SNL, because that's kind of my, like I only do that on Saturdays. My role is I'm the seating director. And I will say that's it's one of the most stressful jobs I've ever done. It's very intense, but we have to load in the audience extremely quickly. Like my audience, I do like the upstairs. So it's like about 400 people and they sometimes don't open the doors because the cast is like rehearsing until like, let me think, like 7:42 and the like dress rehearsal starts at 8 o'clock. So like we have to like get everyone sat like so quick into their seats. So I manage like a team of seaters there. And kind of like I'm calling numbers because it's so fast and like crazy. So I'll be like 45 left, 45 right, 50 down the middle. And then like the seaters will like bring that many people and like fill those seats. So it's a lot of like managing, calling people from the standby line who like camp out overnight. So it's like a big deal because they're like obviously super excited to be there and we don't want to like bring too many people up or like not have enough people. So it's a lot of like managing that. And then, yeah, that's kind of a day in my life. I love doing the Today Show. It's definitely been one of my favorite experiences that I've ever done, if not my favorite, just because everyone who works there is really awesome. And I don't know, I feel like it just like brings, like, I love that it's news, but also it's like more like lifestyle news. So I do get that like little bit of pop culture. And I just feel like I'm involved, like I'm on, like what I was doing before this is I was on like a Zoom recording, meaning like everyone hops on and like everyone records a different like person. So like in this call, I would pin Lindsay and like that would be my person. So like you pin someone and then like you record it. And then that's literally what gets used on the show. So it's so crazy how like these little pieces come together, or even just like transcribing things, or like right now I'm also helping like submit all of our awards for like the Emmys and like all these different like awards. And that's a lot to put together because all the producers have to write like essays for that. So a big project that I'm working on is like getting that all compiled, as well as just like a lot of like communicating with our audience. Like right now we don't have the audience, so we're doing back to doing virtual shout outs. And so for that, I'm like calling people who submit and like having them like put together a little video and then like having that, like sending that to an editor and then having that get played. So it really is just like touching a lot of different things, which I like that every day is a little bit different, I think. I've also gotten to meet some kind of crazy people. So that's been pretty cool. Like every celebrity, like I'm the one walking them like to the set and like just like kind of their like go-to point person. So I've definitely gotten to meet some cool people. I highly recommend the Page program. Applications are opening, I think, within the next week or two for that. And that is one where the next one starts this summer. So anyone who's graduating in May is eligible for that. So like if you're graduating in, because Page program, you have to be a graduate. Interns, you have to be a student, if that makes sense. But yeah, highly recommend applying for the Page program. And yeah, thank you, CJ. Yeah, please don't stay longer than if you have to head somewhere. Any other questions? Kylie?
Okay, hello. So everything you just said, that was a part of, okay, so I think like for dummies, the fellowship, RTS, and Page program. Which ones are like semester, which ones are year long? And then you said Page, you have to be a graduate.
So I've talked about three main things that I did. One is IRTS fellowship, same thing. That's summer. So that's this summer. And how that works is they find you an internship. So like you will have a paid internship if you're a part of the IRTS fellowship, but it kind of like apply for as many as you can, because sometimes it works out where they're like, oh, like they already have an internship, so it's easy for us to accept them, but also they have spots to fill. So like for me, they had one for children's media and they saw that I applied with an interest in children's media and they paired it. So like for you, Kylie, they might have one at a magazine and they'll see that you have that, like they can make that connection. So that's IRTS. It's one summer. I think it's like June 1st through August 8th. And that first week in June is that paid week in New York. So that's option one that I've talked about. Option two is NBC Internships. Those are for the summer, meaning they're like June through end of August. And those are paid internships. When I was there, they were $15 an hour. I don't know if it's gone up since then. And those are for college students. I'm not sure if people graduating in May can apply, but I think they can. But you can't be older than that. And then Page program, that is for anyone who's graduated. So like if you're graduating in May, you can apply for that. If you already graduated, you can also like, you don't have to do it right away. Like people do it who are like up to the, like, who are like 24 or 25, like people who maybe want to like try something new or like make a media pivot. It's also used for that. And for that is a full year long program. So that is like, you would start in June. Yep. You would start in June and go until the next June. And the nice thing about the Page program is when you're like my year, it technically changed because like the assignments used to be 3 months long and then you'd switch. Now it's 4 months long. So you get like a little more time at each assignment, which I actually think is kind of nice. But I started at like end of March And then I won't finish because of those extra 2 months until like June. But then we get a grad period. So you get an extra 3 to 4 months where you're just applying for jobs and you're still getting paid. And you're kind of working like audience services and like wherever they need you. But the bulk of your time is just like applying for jobs. So that's definitely like the perk of the Page program, is like you do have that built-in grad period after. And then yes, Bryn, how is the West Coast Page program different? They're very different programs. I'm just going to say that. And in your application, it'll say like East Coast or West Coast, and whatever you pick your own. So like you can't apply for both coasts. You have to like pick which one you'd want to be like in consideration for. I picked East Coast. First of all, East Coast does have, I think, like at least double the pages of West Coast. So like you like more pages are on the East Coast, just because I think there's more spots here for them. But East Coast is the only way that you're going to be doing any of like the shows, meaning like we're the ones that are doing like The Tonight Show, Late Night with Seth Meyers, Amber Ruffin, SNL. So if you're interested in any of those, East Coast for sure. West Coast is more based in more like East Coast is more like business assignments, those shows that I listed, as well as like corporate assignments and like news. Whereas West Coast is more like Universal Pictures. So if you're interested in more film than television, definitely go to the West Coast. But what I would say to ultimately make your decision off of is like, you're going to have to move wherever you're placed. So like, just pick where you want to live. Like if you're interested more in New York, move there. If you're interested in LA, I would apply for the West Coast Page program. But yeah, I hope that helps.
Okay, I think we have time for one more question.
Anyone else? It can be a fun one. It can be like, what's your favorite celebrity you've met? Or I don't know.
Okay, who is your favorite celebrity you've met?
I don't know, because there's been so many cool ones.
Give us
Aubrey Plaza from Parks and Rec was a page, and so that was a really special one because like she knew like where we were and like just how things work. So that was kind of fun. And she's like not that much. She's like older, but like not like that much older than us. Who else can I say? Meryl Streep was crazy. That was a big one. That was probably like the biggest, but then like SNL was crazy because like I seat all of the guests of like the people who are, so like I don't meet the host of SNL or like the musical guests, but I meet like their entourage, if that makes sense. Like I meet whoever like is there to see them. So like during the Kim Kardashian week, like Chris and Chloe were there. I sat Kanye West. I sat Carly Kloss was there that week. Who else was there? I don't know. And then like Taylor Swift week was like, I mean, I didn't see them, but Selena Gomez, Ryan Reynolds, and Blake Lively were backstage. I sat Joe Jonas and Sophie Turner, Sadie Sink from the video. Yeah, it's crazy. So those are my favorites. Those are my highlights. I don't even know what my life is or how this even happened, but I really like my job, and I'm hoping to get more Midwest students involved in media is I guess like my big thing, because I know how it feels. I know how like it feels like you're just like applying into the abyss and like what's happening, but I don't know. These remote opportunities are like, in my opinion, the key to like getting in there, because you can all apply for them. So that is what I think.
Awesome. Okay, what do you guys want to say to Bailey today?
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all for coming. I know time is valuable and it's J term and it's like weird, but we wanted to do it now because the NBC so like NBC internships are open now. Please reach out if you're interested in a referral, or if you want to learn anything, look at the site, look at the IRTS. I'll send all this to Lindsay. I'll send the LinkedIn groups to her. And if you have any follow-up questions, Lindsay has my email. Please feel free to reach out with any questions.
Yeah, so feel free to reach out to me. So again, I'm Lindsay Gilbert. I am the career services person, in case you don't know me, for the School of Journalism and Mass Communication. and Bailey's favorite professor at Drake. He forgot to mention that part.
That is true as well.
I'm totally teasing. But Bailey and I have had a really great relationship. He was in my 54 class years ago, and I've gotten to know him really well. And I just cannot thank you enough, Bailey, for making this time for us today. I know your work is incredibly important and incredibly busy. So thank you so much for your time and for your efforts. And Bailey knows that it's always been my dream to live in New York City. So it's so cool to have a student that I care so much about who's living and fulfilling this fantasy or this dream of living out in New York. And so I get pictures all the time of the Today Show Plaza and those kinds of things. And, you know, the little tidbits and stories and stuff. And so you guys just got a very small glimpse into the life of what Bailey is doing. He is doing some really amazing things, and we are so fortunate to have him as an alum of the Drake SJMC, and so grateful for your time, Bailey. So
that is so nice. Thank you so much for having me. Again, I am an email away. Please reach out. And if you have, like, Lindsay is fantastic. So any career questions, you are in good hands. I can tell you that.
Thank you. Yeah, reach out to me and I'll get you connected with Bailey, okay?
All right. Thanks, everyone. So nice to meet you virtually.
Thank you. I'm going to stop
Thank you.
recording.